Hey there everyone, Luke here, and Merry Christmas everyone. I know Christmas isn't until Saturday, but you get the point. You get the point. It's the fact it's the Christmas week this week, and as you're well aware, this week on Sunday it'll be Boxing Day, meaning there'll be no Shonen Jump chapters because they'll be around the Christmas period. So um, next week there'll be no video. And like me and Parry Jones said in our live stream yesterday, there'll be no live stream as well. So yeah, next week break for us as well, and then the week after we'll be back to talking about the chapters, and then the week after that there'll be no week of Show and Jump, but that week we'll be talking about Jump Festa on stream, talking about the different animes that were announced and all the different projects that are coming, because we have a lot to say about those. So look forward to that. But for now, let's wrap up the year with quite possibly with one of the best chapters, which has a cliffhanger which a lot of people are not paying attention to. Okay, so this will be chapter 223, titled Zero. Now, that time has a double meaning. It's obviously in reference to the countdown to the rocket, because this chapter is the rocket launch. Now, while I personally would have preferred this chapter to be the rocket launch, get more character development, and Parry Jones was kind of in agreement with me, it kind of makes sense for the series to end the year on a high note. Like, okay, the rocket is being launched, it's going into space. So yeah, that kind of does make sense, even though we would kind of like wanted to have another, like maybe 2 or 3 chapters before the rocket launch. But anyway, the chapter starts off with one of the best colour pages of the series, which shows Stanley, Kohaku, and Senku just looking all awesome. Now, Stanley in particular is great. Is great here with a bit of his blonde hair coming out. Now, initially that led me to believe, like, oh, that's a representation of Stanley being petrified in this chapter, because obviously they have to be petrified to go into space, which I think is a little bit stupid on my end. But hey, what can you do? Although people are saying like this is death flags for Stanley, I'm like, really? Don't kill off Stanley Snyder. Like, nobody dies in I think we've pretty much established nobody dies in Doctor Stone. Well, unless Stanley's head gets blown up. Like, gets blown up before he has a chance to be petrified. Maybe death is permanent, but come on, you really think they're going to do that to Stanley Snyder? Okay, going back to the colour page briefly, I've brought up the Doctor Stone trivia on Twitter, which, by the way, go and follow him on Twitter. He does a lot of great stuff and a lot of supplemental material that, oh yeah, I wouldn't have been able to pick up on that. And he says, obviously this is the final chapter of 2021, and this time last year, Seiko and the others were crossing the Andes, and Suika almost died falling into the canyon. Oh my god, you had to remind me of that. How time flies, unlike Suika. Come on, man, that is not funny. But yeah, it's amazing how much time has actually passed this year. Like, we've gone from the South America arc all the way to building the rocket. Well, I wish this would have gone a little bit longer. What can you do? It's Inigaki's story. Can't really complain about that. But yeah, the chapter starts off with more of the training, where we see Stanley, Senku, and Kaku underwater, like obviously trying to get their breathing up for when they actually have to be in space, and there's a lot more oxygen that they have to take in, and the astronaut, and he says on the trivia, the astronauts are training underwater to simulate space weightless. Oh yeah, obviously, because you're weightless in space. Yeah, and you'll notice they have frames around them. Now, this is to ensure natural buoyancy. They'll neither float to the surface nor stick to the bottom. So yeah, it's kind of so yeah, the training that they have here kind of reminiscent of that obvious training of like they're floating in space and gotta like keep the floating going up. And we see how difficult it is, obviously, for Senku. At Senku, and we have Kohaku just like being like eyed wide of like, Stanley, you're smoking, because you see Stanley just smoking there. It's like, Stanley, you're meant to be preserving your oxygen. You're not meant to be puffing smoke into it. That's, I think, what Kawaku is actually trying to say here. But yeah, really wish we had got this chapter just be like the space training for the moon mission, and we'd started off the year with the blasting off of the rocket. So that's what we were kind of hoping for. But what can you do? We see the rocket actually being transported to Treasure Island, as we see the date set for the launch rocket, which is the 14th. The 14th of what? What month? What year? Okay, yeah, this is something that I completely agree with Pride Johnson, because this is a rant he did on the live stream. Like, come on, Inagaki, at least give us the year and the day, or and the month, not the day, and the month of the rocket mission, because this is like the first rocket mission in the Stone World. You think that it would be like this massive thing, like, okay, we are gonna set this date and time and year in stone, quite literally, to be preserved in all of history. Now, let's see what this says here. Okay, Dr. Stone Trivia says, I think they gave up on accurate guidance after the 10-year time skip. Yeah, this is what I said to Party Jam, but I'm kind of in agreement with Party Jams on, like, yeah, you figure this would be like a major event. Okay, you gotta put this in the Stonewall Diaries calendar. But yeah, I think Inagaki was like, okay, I don't want to make another mistake on the timeline here, so I'm just gonna give the day itself, so like the 14th, which, okay, yeah, that does make sense. Inagaki has been kind of a bit fumbling when it comes to the timeline, so yeah, best to not mess yourself up, I guess. But still, you'd figure like he would have been like sitting down and be like, okay, where are they in the story? Like, 57, 53. Okay, he could have at least looked at what 14s would be. What 14s would be in 57, 56. He could have at least just googled that and be tired. What date? What months in 57, 46 will have a 14 date? And he could have been looking at them and thinking like, Saturday the 14th of June, 57, 56, that'll do. So, something like that. I'm just throwing that date out of the top of my head. Actually, let me just see quickly if that is actually what day will 14th of June 57, 56 be? Okay, it's a Monday, so it will be a Monday. So even I got that mixed up. So like Saturday the 14th. So actually, yeah, let's see if there are any January. So that's a Wednesday. It will be in January. Can't believe I'm actually doing this. February. Okay, here we go. We got it right off the bat. So it could have been like, okay, Saturday the 14th of February, 57, 56, which I guess would be so I guess that's Valentine's Day. The month of love, and the day of love. Yeah. Bye guys, we're going into space. Love you guys, but we're going into space. Honestly, that would be funny if it was actually that day. Like, yeah, on Valentine's Day, on Amaryllis's birthday. Funny we didn't see Amaryllis in this chapter, now that I think about it. But yeah, on Amariza's birthday, yeah, we love you guys, but we're gonna bugger off to fight the Y Man. That would have been hilarious. But yeah, so, yeah, I guess that's why Inagaki was like, okay, I can't. Okay, I really don't want to screw myself up here. So I'll just give the date number like the 14th. So okay, that makes sense. But again, really wish this was like a big historical event that you actually put in here. Anyway, moving on, we cut over to the actual port as we see the tunnel where Senku, Korko, and Stanley are going down it to obviously board the rocket. As we see, I'm sorry, you just look at these spacesuits and you just laugh. Like, come on, they are ridiculous. They are ridiculous, especially since they're being worn by three of the skinniest people in the series. Like, it doesn't even make any sense how Kohoko is actually moving around in that suit. It's like I could easily fit two Kohokos in. Like, seriously, look at Kohoko. Like, how is she even functioning in that? And it's amazing how like Senku and Kohoko are like, yeah, we're going in space, and Stanley's just there like, I look completely ridiculous in this. Now, okay, the Dr. Stone trivia says these spacesuits look more similar to the astropheric diving suits. But, okay, yeah, they kind of do have a similar vibe going for them, but I'm sorry, you just laugh at those spacesuits. Like, they are completely ridiculous. But yeah. Yeah, and he goes into more detail on the trivia about the spacesuits, and yeah, and this is something he says as well. You're probably laughing at how awkwardly everyone's standing. You think, and that's because the suits don't have a full range of movement. Yeah, okay, it does make sense, but still, they look ridiculous. To make working with their hands easier, the suits are biased towards the front, and shoulders are really complemented joints. But yeah, that's still ridiculous either way you look at that. Either way you look at it. So yeah, moving completely on, we have Ruri and Suika saying their goodbyes to Koku as they're like, don't be reckless, come back safely. And Koku's like, you bet I will. Funny, we never got any interaction between Koku's father here, Kokio. We never got like Kokio saying goodbye, considering the fact she's his daughter. I guess Kokio doesn't care much for gorillas, which now that the Kuraka's in a spacesuit, she kind of does look like a gorilla there. We have Chrome saying goodbye to Senku here, and he's like, "Are you getting cold feet?" And Senku's like, who do you think you're talking to? Obviously we get Sinu saying goodbye to Stanley. That makes sense. I mean, Pyjans was more like I really wish some of the other American people got to say goodbye to Stanley, but it does make sense for it to just be Sinu there, considering they are life partners / boyfriends / whatever you want to call them at this point. And we get a nice callback to when Stanley and Cena were first petrified, and Cena was like declaring the fact that yes, I am gonna rule the world here with my childhood friend Stanley. As he says, but my science and your battle powers will once again combine to wage war. And it's nice that Stanley actually says this. It's like he says, "Don't know about that. It ain't just the two of us anymore." And this is where it clicks with Cena. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. We are joined by Senku's people, no, by the entire world. And yeah, like I said last chapter, there's no point in Cena ruling the world now, considering he's pretty much doing it. Like, he's dictating a lot of the rules of the world with science, obviously with the help of other people around him, like Senku, Ryusui, and they're all morally good people. I mean, he was probably more pissed off at the more corrupted people that were using their methods to kind of rule the world, whereas Senku and Ryusui and Tsukasa and all of them, they're more like understanding people and more neutral people, so it kind of like makes it more easy for him to get along with them and be like, okay, we can rule this as a dictatorship together, basically. And going back to the Dr. Stone trivia, they say the transition from Stanley and Xenu being an inseparable pair, chasing their other half around the world. So yeah, even the Dr. Stone trivia is like, yeah, these two are a couple 100%. 100%. And the fact that they bring up the colour page of Stanley and Xenu like that, yeah, that's pretty much them saying, yeah, they're a couple. But yeah, they're chasing their other half around the world, to Stanley admitting their dad, it ain't just the two of them anymore. Really shows character development. Yeah, nice character development on Stanley's part. And really, at the end of the day, like I said last chapter, Stanley was just basically doing what he did because Senku and everyone kidnapped Xenu in the first place. So really, if they're gonna bring up the fact like, oh, Stanley tried to kill us, even though they're not going to do that because he's on their side now. He could kind of like, well, really, I was really acting in self because you guys basically you came into our territory, stole our leader, and buggered off. So what did you think I was going to do? He could bring that up, like I said last chapter. But yeah. See, he goes on to say, Xenu following it up with "we" makes me feel something though. Like, is he on the idea that Stanley is gonna die? Like, cause that would be so heart wrenching for Xenu and Stanley's relationship. But yeah, going back to the chapter briefly, we see Xenu obviously getting what I would like to say a little bit embarrassed of just like, here, Stanley. Here, I've made these for you. They're chewing tobacco shaped like cigarettes since you can't smoke in space. And this is where the Dr. Stone tribute says, but chewing tobacco needs to be spat out afterwards, unless Stanley intends to eat the cigarette paper and all. I really hope we see Stanley use one because I don't know how they're meant to work now. If anyone has seen the sci-fi series Red Dwarf, which I will highly recommend. It's a sci-fi comedy series. The main character in that series is a smoker, like Stanley, and in one scene in one of the episodes in season 5, he actually eats a cigarette. He actually eats a cigarette himself, and then there's like an outtake after that. On the extras where the actor just spits out the cigarette because it's like. Yeah, so that's probably what it tastes like. It's probably Stanley would probably chew it, taste it, and just be like, "Oh, that's disgusting," without it actually being lit up. That's probably going to be the reaction there. But yeah, we have Tsukasa saying, "Kohaku, between you and Stanley's skills, you will make the ultimate attack force against any moon combat." And Ryusui mentions, so you stole my ride, Stanley. I expect you to do your job, beat Wyman, and be back safely. Am I wrong? And before he corrects himself to say, can you do it? And Stanley's like, yeah, I can, as they give a fist bump. So yeah, like that little bit of a moment, because it's a sort of reference to when Ryusui put a cigarette in Stanley Statue's mouth, when they all were revived and all getting Xenu to cooperate with them. So yeah. So yeah, that's a nice little development here. Nice to see that they actually have respect for each other now. Which, well, I would have liked to see more talks between Stanley and the rest of the Kingdom of Science, particularly Suika. I would have liked him to go up to Suika and say, "Yeah, sorry for pointing that gun at you when you were a small child. I hope there's no hard feelings between us." "Oh, not at all, Stanley Snyder." Yeah. Just a little interaction like that would have made Stanley a lot more awesome than he actually is. We go over to Luna when so I guess Luna came to Japan off screen with Max and Carlos. Yay, great for them. Even though they've been really underutilized in the series, we all thought that Luna was going to be like, a really vital part of the crew, and yeah, she really didn't. But yeah, she's saying she can't handle this because she's just got back with Senku and now he's buggering off to space, and she's not worried about him. And Senku's obviously gonna succeed and come back to her. Yeah, I think you should be worried, particularly about what's going to come up here, as we see Senku giving that, yeah, realistically, the historical death rate for humans in space is only like 5%, and that is not reassuring, considering using stone world tech here. Using stone world tech here. Something is going to go wrong. I've been saying this, like, for ages, but this is hinting that something is going to go wrong, particularly when Suika says, the moon launch feels like a big party, but what if the rockets fail, or like the other times? Because we haven't seen like the man-made rocket fail, and I really wish they had just they really wish we had a prototype of maybe someone else getting petrified, going up in a rocket, and then just seeing what happens, or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, everyone is freaking out about this, and we see again going, it's fine, it's truly fine. After all, our candidates will be petrified on takeoff, so even if there is a launch, even if the launch fails and they blow up, we can just gather the fragments and revive them. And yeah, and Taiju's like, yeah, good point. Yeah, and Senku's like, yeah, this is bad when even you're not convincing Taiju. Like, yeah, I'll repeat that. This is bad when you're not convincing Taiju. Like, Taiju is one of the people who's like, oh yeah, yeah, that's right, we're all gonna do it. We're all gonna do it. Yeah, everything's gonna be all right. And here he's like, yeah, that's a good point, but yeah. So okay, glad that Taiju is being like, yeah, I don't buy this one bit. Before we see Taiju going, if worst comes to the worst, he'll spend decades finding all the little stone bits so that Yuzuriha can piece them back together. And Senku's like, you two are so hardworking, I bet you try. And Taju's like, no, we won't try, we'll do it. We'll do it, you can count on that. So yeah, nice to see the camaraderie between Taiju, Yuzuriha and Senku, which was a nice callback to the beginning of the series when they were the original trio that were revived in the stone world. Before we see Senku saying, yeah, you just might. So yeah, this is just hinting time and time again, yeah, this is bad, something bad's going to happen, as we see everyone just cheering him on. Yeah, Stanley, Koroku, Senku, you've got this. The best we can do on the ground is lend you moral support. As we see, finally, we see one of the younger kids from Ishigami Fridge. We see Shuffle there, which, by the way, we don't see Mariah in this chapter. Come on, just show us Mariah. But yeah, this pretty much confirms my theory that yeah, none of the kids are aging in this chapter in this series now. So this might be something to do with the Medusa, where it stops you physically aging as well. Because if you remember, when Kosuke was revived on Treasure Island, he was like, "Oh, my arthritis is cured. My arthritis is cured." I believe it was the arthritis. I could be completely wrong, but pretty sure like his joints were a lot more flexible at that point. So yeah, this is probably another effect of the Medusa, and to do with the immortality. Like, it physically stops you aging, the petrification. Because yeah, none of the characters look any different despite years and years passing. Particularly Kazuki, you figure there'll be a little bit more wrinkles on him, but yeah, none of the humans look any different. So that probably is a side effect of the Medusa. Like, it stops you physically aging, so you'll still age up like normal, but your body will stay the same. Before we get my favourite moment in the chapter, which is the meeting between Chol and Kazuki. The moment that we've been waiting for so long, since like halfway through the South America arc, right up until this point, we finally get to meet them, and now they can finally have that toast. And I'm just waiting for the moment where they pour a glass together and they're just like, king, a toast to us, the engineers of the Stone World. So yeah, this is where we get Kazuki revitalizing the Medusa with a diamond battery with the help of Joel. So, and it's nice that Joel is actually showing subtle character development, because he's actually showing respect for a fellow male here. Which, if you know Joel, he's like a little bit like kind of like a bit of a bastard to the males. But with Kazuki, he's the exception here, because he's a fellow engineer and he helped him develop the Medusa and get it fully working. So I really like that, and I really respect that about Joel's character. And again, it might be implying that Joel is autistic because I can be like that sometimes where sometimes I can be a bit rude, even though I don't intend to be. I tend to be rude depending on certain people. With obvious exceptions, if I come to know and understand people, then obviously I can be more chill with them. But yeah, strangers, I can be a little bit rude at times. I'll admit that. I'll admit that. But again, this is why I can relate to Joel. So yeah, he might be autistic. He might not. It's just not being officially confirmed in the series. We see Kosuke handing Senku the Medusa as we see. Okay, pie jams. I think I figured it out. Like, obviously, if you look in this panel here, you can see what looks like steam coming from the spaceship. So I guess that's probably what's happening at the end of the chapter, which we'll get into when we get into it. But yeah, the end of the chapter just makes it incredibly confusing to me. We see Senku activate the Medusa as we see some of the Ishigami Fish people. This is probably the first. This actually is the first time of them seeing the Medusa's light, not the petrification, the worldwide petrification, but actually the Medusa's light. Oh no, the Medusa's light was the second worldwide petrification. So yeah, I guess they're just shocked because this is the first time they're seeing it up close and personal. Now you can see on the Dr. Stone trivia it says you can see where on the rocket the astronauts are an approximate measurement of 10 meters based on the petrification beam, making the rocket about 70 feet tall. The Saturn V was 110 meters tall and 10 meters wide, which kind of an interesting little fact there. Before we actually get them discussing the Medusa actually being self-activate that time back in chapter 230, which nice callback there that we're actually getting that being brought up as a plot point, which again just hints at me like something bad is going to happen. And this is where they say in the Dr. Stone trivia, happy to have at least some payoff for what happened in chapter 213, even if the results is simply we don't know what happened. The good news is that the presence of vacuum alone probably isn't what did it, since they couldn't replicate it. So yeah, I'm glad that it was actually brought up, and I feel like it is going to be a major plot point moving forward into the next stage of the arc. Before we get Miyamiya counting down and saying what awaits our heroes on the moon's surface. Soon the moon rocket will launch. And okay, going back to here as well, we have that situation there. We have Ukyo saying all we can do is hope there are no other options. And yeah, Ukyo is just screaming like, I hope something bad's going to happen, but I feel like something bad's going to happen. But yeah, the rocket launch starts happening. 10, 9. Oh, hey, there's Mantle. 8, 7, 6. Before we get Senku's thoughts, and as like he's in the petrification state. He can't hear a damn thing and he can't feel any vibrations. But assuming Sinu's moving according to plan, no, I know a fact he is. Then right now the countdown is at 5. And he's so Senku is keeping track of everything. And Paradox did bring up an interesting theory, which we'll get into when we get into the end of the chapter. As this all brings back memories of Senku when he was counting all that time, but now he's counting down. As we see the dolls from the beginning of the series, and Paradox thought, would it be crazy if those dolls are still floating up in space somewhere? The trivia says the dolls are from chapter 10 after Senku sent the Senku 3 rocket into space. It's interesting how Senku's hair splits similarly to the doll, with one thick strand and one thin one. And 2, 1 as we get by humanity swept by the power of science, and nice double colour spread of just how Boichi does the art of the series. So nice spread there from his perspective. Before we get Senku saying, we have surfed the petrification of our world back to zero, and now we're departing that very world. So obviously that's a reference to the time, because as soon as he says zero, we get the zero countdown and the launch of the rocket, and that's where the chapter ends. Now, this is what I was referring to earlier about the rocket of just having steam or something coming on. It's the fact that you can see just the rocket here. It seems like there's a lot of fire around there. Now, this might be indicating that the rocket is going to fail. Although we can't actually know that until the next chapter. Now, I had the theory, and obviously a lot of people have put cows up to this, is that the rocket might actually explode in space, and if that happens, that'll be the worst situation, because obviously it'll be impossible to find all the pieces. So yeah, looking back, that might not happen. Although Pyjams did bring up quite an interesting theory of the fact that Senku is obviously carrying everything, so he'll still be carrying until they actually get to the moon, and something might actually happen on the moon. We might actually get the next chapter just from Senku's perspective, just him travelling to the moon and everything, and then once he lands, he's still like carrying it. He's like, wait, we've not revived yet. We should have revived by now. And then we just see the aftermath of just like the rocket just crash landing on the moon, and everyone is just like, oh crap. So yeah, that might happen. They might actually crash land on the moon. Something might have gone wrong. The rocket might be destroyed on the moon's surface, and Senku standing in Kuraka's statue to just obliterate them just on the moon's surface, prompting a backup team to actually go up there and sort that out. That might be the case, because Ryusui did mention he's the backup pilot. Now, the Dr. Stone trivia did also bring up the statement that Senku made at the end of the chapter. That it's a bit confusing, but he thinks Senku is implying that they've returned to the modern era in terms of technology, which is true. They have returned to that point with the actual building and sending the rocket into space. But they might not have 100% revived humanity. So maybe this might be the final arc in Dr. Stone Part 1, and maybe there might be a Dr. Stone Part 2. We just never know, because there's a lot of Part 2s happening these days. You have the parts of JoJo's, you have Chainsaw Man Part 2 coming out, so there might be a Dr. Stone Part 2 where they focus on reviving humanity. Like, they're focused on reviving the tech at this point, but we might actually get a Part 2 where they actually focus on going more around the world to revive all of humanity and seeing what ramifications come from that. So, yeah, that might actually happen. You just never know. So, yeah, I'd like that. I'd like that if there was a second part. Okay, we focus on reviving the tech. Now we have to focus on reviving humanity. Like, actually going around the world, reviving humanity, and seeing what obstacles come from that. So, yeah. But that might not happen. That's just me being wishful thinking there. Fingers crossed it might happen. But obviously if it doesn't happen, I'll understand. But, yeah. Anyway, guys, that was the chapter. Hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We're back in the new year for chapter 224, and obviously more live streams between me and Party Jam. So, yeah, what did you guys think of this chapter? Let me know. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And this will be Lasherluke signing off. Later, guys.